All right, we are now recording. All right, everybody, welcome to episode number. GHAZZY, what episode number is this?
420.69.
Welcome to 420.69 episode, the most serious podcast in the world, starring Pox and Captain Lance as special guests. How are you all doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you, Lance?
I'm doing quite well. Good to see you guys. Hopefully, I don't say
Everybody
anything too
hyped?
crazy.
Everybody hyped for the launch that's coming. What, Friday?
Super
Absolutely.
Super slowly. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yep, it's stalling Omega time. At least we got some things to watch in the meantime. Did you see the currency video that explained how the currency system worked?
No, I need to look at it, actually.
It looks really like the UI looks really clean and pretty just straightforward. Click the currency you want, punch the number ratio. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how it needs to be, right? Everything needs to be simple. If it's taken them this long to do it, it's got to be super clean and simple.
Kinda. I mean, there's that, but there's also this limitation, right? Or was it 10 trade offers up at the same time?
10. Yeah, it showed as 10. Well, they didn't say specifically 10 in the video, but you could see where it said 1 of 10, like in their test list. It just said it would be limited, so I'm assuming it's 10.
Pretty sure they said 10.
But it's,
Didn't they say, though, you can list so much, though? Like, not list so much, but like for one exchange, you can put so much quantity.
75,000, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, that's a crap ton. So, like, if there's a currency you're constantly using, like maybe you're essence spamming, trying to get like something crazy, you could just list to buy a metric ton of that under one listing, right? Or no?
Well, yeah, until someone undercuts you and you get
Well,
upset.
okay, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a very good point. I didn't think about that.
You just paid all the gold to put that up, you know?
chat
I
saying,
You
like
lose
it,
it if
though.
you try to take it out, right? If
Sorry?
you try to swap your trade back out, you lose the gold, or is it just
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, one thing to keep in mind with that, though, is like with this automated ease of access to trade with this currency exchange market, a lot more people will actually bother using it, and you're not going to see the price fixtures. So I think we're going to see, like, especially in softcore, it's going to be super push with tons of these bubblegum currencies going to enter the market that we've never seen before.
I feel like it might just tank the price of a lot of things, especially like you see
Yeah.
those shipments where they just had like hundreds of alts and transmutes and stuff all just come back.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuff's gonna go through the floor.
I think it's so good though, right? Like how many people want to engage with crafting but don't want to go through the effort or hassle of buying bulk, especially when if you've never broken into the market, think of like the mid-level player. They're like, "Oh, well, I could buy 100 essences at 2C each, but realistically, I have to buy them at 4C each. Now I'm spending 2 times the price. I'm going to individually whisper each person, I hate this game, uninstall."
Yep.
Right, like that won't be a thing anymore. They can just see the price, right?
Just actually a good
But-
point. Like the only time I've ever been annoyed trading is when I'm having to like transfer currencies. Like I gotta buy a divine or sell, one or whatever. But I'm never really annoyed at like finding the individual items, like browsing the trade website and like, okay, I want these gloves or these boots. Like those trades don't feel so bad, but it's the constant like having to go back out and sell my harvest juice like every 15 minutes or something that kind of pisses me off.
Like, I agree with that, but it's what you said, Lance, as well. Like the idea with that the prices would tank, right? I'm not sure they would. I think that it's going to happen originally, like in the start, and then it's going to skyrocket as soon as anyone who pushes a lot of crafting, like myself, we buy bulk. We're happy to pay 2-3 times the price, like you mentioned, Liam, because we get them all, in one trade. But now that we have this ease of access, we would just cleanse the market, and the prices will go up, and that would benefit the casual players. Like when they find that bubblegum currency, they'll sell it, and it's gonna get sold, right? So it's kind of like a win-win situation, at least from my
Yeah, that's a
perspective.
good point. I was thinking like if you have the person who has just one of like an essence or whatever, you're only going to be able to sell that at the 1C whatever trade. The person who's willing to be like, I will go trade you for this cheaper price. Now you could just compete with the guy who has 1,000 because you can just match the price and it'll still sell.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that term, cleanse the market. You can just go buy out just everything, like on the lower side or like the individual, just buy it all out instantly. That sounds
Yeah.
so different than right now.
You know, I had a discussion about this a few days ago. So I was talking about how I was using Deafening Essence of Fear to do a profit or a couple of profit crafts last league, and I had an estimated amount about 140,000 essences I used throughout those 4 months. That's a lot of essences. And I remember like cleaning out the entire market with reasonable prices 7 or 8 times throughout that time just to get those essences, and it took a long time. And I had help with people buying them for me, and chat was helping me. It's just absolutely insane. But now we can cleanse the market. But the cool thing though is like even the purchases requires gold, right? You still need tons of gold to do it. So for you to trade, you have to actively play the game.
They
And I kind
Do
of
you
basically
think
like
that's gonna kill the hideout warrior archetype of like the party trade system, where like you have a party where you have like 7 guys and one guy's the trader? Is he just not gonna be useful at that point, or he still sells like uniques and stuff and it's fine?
I
think about
mean,
that.
so
Sorry.
okay, here's the thing though. Like, say you're in, we're talking about like highly efficient groups, right? Or
Yeah.
somewhat efficient groups. I mean, since they said gold is automatically picked up, could you not just set your maps for like omega juicing density? Do like a 6 hour grind session, and then you're like that one person has enough to trade for X amount of time. Because if you think about like then again, they said everyone gets gold individually. Is it split in a party, or is everyone getting their own amount?
it's
Like,
good. It's a good
does that make
question about
sense?
the party. I don't know, but do you know if they get gold from the passive of the map running too? Because if you're a hideout warrior, couldn't you just only use the go that you get from the passive runners you're
I
using?
would think not, but maybe.
I have no idea.
I literally have no clue. I mean, ultimately you still have to play the game to be able to to participate in the trade, which obviously will not prevent, but make it a little harder for botters and whatnot. So bad actors will be having a harder time screwing around with it. And I just kind of like the idea of it. So, but yeah, like you said, hideout warriors are definitely going to be impacted by it because they will have to get gold, and you couldn't trade gold with one another, right? They were individual, personalized currency. Hmm.
People are saying in the chat that the passive isn't going to generate gold, so I don't know if they answer that in the Q&A somewhere or something, but
It would make sense that they wouldn't give gold,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of trying to push down the hideout warrior archetype for the trade system. Also, it's to fight bots as well. Probably the more important reason for doing the tax.
That's
Yeah.
that's that's got to be inspired by Last Epoch, don't you think, right? Didn't they talk about how they like the Last Epoch sort of auction house trading type in that one interview? And then in this one, the gold reminds me a lot of that, where you have to like play the game to counter the, like you're saying, counter the hideout warrior, the bodying issue. It seems like that's pretty directly inspired from Last Epoch, if I had to guess.
Like
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Last
he literally
Epoch.
said that, right?
Yeah.
He referenced it, and before we'd never heard them talk about trading or auction
Ever.
house or anything like that.
It was just no.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
I like
no.
even having like Chris Wilson on the podcast. It was like, yeah, the community wants us to ask about auction house, and he's like, "There's no point. We've already tackled this topic. I'm just gonna repeat what we said before. No, it's never gonna happen." And here we are. I'm like, wow, like came out of the blue.
Can
But
I? Can I? Sorry, go on. Didn't mean to interrupt.
no, like just a reference to the last epoch part, the way they did with the item trades there, because there's no currency trades, just item trades, is when you buy an item, it can't come back to the market again. It's like you cannot resell the item. I really love that because then there's an item sink. You buy something, then that item can't return to the secondhand market, right? And it keeps the market kind of healthy in that sense and incentivizes finding new items. It's like with the current system, as the league progresses, and we have groups of people, bad actors. We're not gonna, people can figure that out themselves. Who that might be, could be in positions where they can cleanse the markets, and if they have enough gold, then they can resell them again for twice the price, which is good for casual players because once they find that item or currency, they can then sell it and make money out of it, and they're happy. And the guys who have a lot of wealth can double, triple, quadruple their wealth by just having a lot of gold. everybody wins, I guess. But we'll see how it goes. I hope that's not going to be too impactful.
What are you playing next week, GHAZZY? Every time you say cleanse, there's like this evil, like maniacal tone doing like, I'm gonna cleanse the market. You go like world domination mode over here? What's the little dark undertone?
So, like I always do profit crafting as my method of making currency. It like just simple things like ritually. I did calculate, or not exactly. I stopped counting after 400 ones. Those 400 ones as an average craft of 12 fossils, which are 4 socket resonators. So that's 4 different fossils times 12 times 400 just for that crafting, plus the 400 or times 4 times 12 resonators. It's a lot of currency or that is being recycled and utilized, right? And then you make the money back, you buy. So the currency is not a problem, but it's still a lot of currency that goes into the market, out of the market, and then back in the form of an item, right? And from one person, when you start thinking about how many people actually play the game, like current version of trading, not everyone is trading because of how trade is, but now there are, and it will allow people that are buying bulks, paying 2-3 times the price, can literally just buy up the entire markets. And I kind of dig that. Does that make sense? I mean, you do crafting as well, Lance. Yeah,
that makes
you
a
know
lot
what
of
I'm
sense.
talking
I was
about.
also thinking while you were talking about that, I was thinking about the aspect of how many times I get to a situation where I have something that's like semi-valuable, but I don't want to take the time to trade it. And there's probably a lot of that going on too, where there's going to be more resources as well.
That's true. I mean, I'm sure you've been in positions where you craft something, you're buying a not so common currency orb, and you pay 30 chaos each for like essences.
By the end of it, you're paying a divine or two or whatever because you
Yeah.
soaked up all of the.
Oh yeah, there's still a good price if you buy them one by one, but you want to buy 100 of them, you better pay up. I guess pretty crazy. But have you, Pox or DM, you guys had any experience like with that type of trading interactions in the way you guys play, like with that massive bulk purchasing of items or currency?
I have it for a different reason. So if I just talk about crafting something, it's immediate. Like I'm not the guy who gets it. If I say like I'm gonna craft tomorrow with Screaming Essence of Anger, the price goes from 2C to 3C, just instantly. Because what people do is I reach such a large amount of new players who are easily manipulated. They just instantly buy out everything, and the new players know if Pox is doing it, I'll do it, so they go buy it out, right? So like price fixing for me, this is a big reason I want the market because it will kind of, not. I mean, obviously that can still happen to an extent, but it's much more black and white about what's happening, right?
Yeah. No, I can see that, but I don't know. Like it kind of depends on how you approach it, right? Like I do my profit crafting, which is meant to make currency. I can't do it on stream because of what you're saying. Like I can't do it. I can't even sell it from the same account. I have to use other people who nowadays have to use a secondary account because people search for their account names to track what they're selling. Like,
See what I do.
Really crazy.
If I do profit crafting, so it's actually funny what people tell me because I do much lower end profit crafting, like buy fracture, use essence, sell, right? Something like that. I have all of my stuff on my website, and I actually have like went into other streamer discords to check this. There are people who talk about profit crafting who don't play RF, who literally use my crafting tips to sell to RF players. It's really funny. It's so funny.
No, it's super good. If a build is
Yeah.
popular, that's a good way to make currency. The
Yeah,
more popular
like
the build is, the more money you'll make.
yeah, like for example, for scepters, a lot of the time it's hard to get like entry level scepters. If you list a scepter with like 100% plus increased fire damage, it sells. Yeah, because that's how people are searching, right? They do like the little pseudo search and it just pops up and sells. So you could like literally you could buy any scepter, use a minion essence on it of like fear on T1, craft fire multi, make 20C. You just literally list scepters for 20C that you're spending like 4C to make. And just keep just listing it. It's 20C trade, 20C trade. Very interesting.
That's just how the market goes.
Yeah,
Kinda
that's how it
crazy.
is, man.
What's your experience with these type of trades or bigger trades, if you will, in bulks, DM?
So I don't really trade in bulk because I work about 15 minutes ahead of, like I look only 15 minutes in the future. It's just enough dopamine to be able to do my next craft, pretty much is how I live. So I'm not really doing bulk, but I'm sure that my favorite experience with this is going to be two things. One of which is I can actually like click remove a stack of 20 at a time. I don't have to have my currency tab public anymore, which would piss me off because when it's public, you can't just like click remove the stacks of 20. So now we're going to be selling the currency through the thing, so I don't have to have a public currency tab. I'm excited for that. And then if I'm selling harvest juice, I can just run the map and just have it sell. It would be annoying because I'm gonna be like, I need to buy one craft worth of your harvest. So I'm going back to, sell the minimum stack of something. And so that's the only thing I've really sold in bulk. I am curious to see how much of like these garbage currencies that I end up crunching up to buy stuff out, because normally it's like I'm so lazy, like I'm not going to sell fusings, jewelers, like I don't want to do all this shit. So I'm curious if this is actually going to make me, when I go to like, my whole plan is to save up and try to get my first mage blood or headhunter because I've never owned it. So I'm kind of curious how much of these low currencies are actually going to turn into usable currency for me from stuff that I just don't do out of pure laziness.
I get that.
That's
I'm in
actually
that same boat.
funny. You know, I remember, it must have been a year ago. I made a video talking about that people have way more wealth or currency than they know, and they're like, "No, I don't. I only have X chaos, X divine orbs." And I look at their inventory or their currency tabs, and it's like, you got scarabs worth 60 divines. What are you talking about? All
Yeah,
you have to do is
exactly.
sell them, right? You
Yep.
have like essences worth another 20. Dude, you're rich. What are you talking about? Like, no, I have no idea. I don't make any currency. It's because they don't sell it, right? And the current version of trading is atrocious. So with this, now they can actually, flip those bubblegum currencies into the commonly traded ones, Chaos Divines, Exalted, I guess, to some degree.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
actually very fun.
Though Pox, we probably both had the same experience, Pox, of playing RuneScape on like both sides of the Grand Exchange. That's what this feels like to me. It's like they're adding the
I'm-
Grand Exchange into the game, and so when that happened, there was flip side of like people liked it because it's super efficient and you get to like make money off of this thing now. But then some people hated it because it ruined like the individual trade aspect where like you go here to get this item which makes you interact with the community, which then
Yep.
makes a
Yep.
knowledge gap, make you money,
That was
etc.
me. I'd be in like, Varrock, West Bank, Glow 2, want to sell full set of Darrock. That was me. Like
Trimming
I
armor.
actually yeah, okay, well I wasn't a scammer, so no armor trimming from me. I did get hit with if you want to duplicate your deer, drop it on the floor and alt F4. I was like, "Really?"
Oh
Did it,
no.
and I learned as a kid in middle
Oh
school, I
no.
learned don't drop your crap on
Valuable
the floor and
lesson.
alt F4. Yep. Yeah, but I get you completely with the gumball. That's like my scarab tab. And I am never gonna price check a single thing. I just look at it, it makes me happy, and I go on. But now I could bulk sell them. If I want currency, I just pull out a random scarab and list it and sell it, right? The currency tab looks the same thing as a whole bunch of bulk everywhere. Because there's a lot of times you're like, man, I only have 5 chaos and a divine, but I need 60. I don't want to break the divine. Oh, I have 700 fusings, 2,000 chromatic orbs, and 1,942 alterations.
And that's money. Like,
Yeah.
people that have way more than they think, especially like when people talk about, oh, how are you making so much currency just running maps or whatever? Like, you just all can go. You don't even do any specific strategies. I'm like, yeah, I loot the currency. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't drop any divines. I saw like 5 chaos in the last 2 hours. Yeah, but I just looted, 10 divines worth of other currencies. So you got to look at it. Like, in other games, most other ARPG games, gold has been like the standard wealth uh, number, like you go by, right? That's not what you look at. You have a billion gold, or in Diablo 4 you might have 10 billion trillion gold, like their damage numbers. Like, that's a different story, right? But in PoE, the currency in your wealth is measured in 100 different orbs, and there's more coming. Even though the main ones are Chaos Divines and maybe Exalteds, but there's hundreds of them, and they're all currency. They're all your wealth, right?
It's definitely a lot harder of a game to break into for that reason, right? It's harder
Mm.
to gauge what you have as a newer player, 100%.
Sure. Yeah, I saw your picture of the Discord now with the scarabs.
That's just how it is, man. It's just all random because I don't know. I don't like selling gumball. Actually, what I do towards the end of the league, whenever I'm memeing around, like testing interactions, I'll just like send a trade whisper, and however long it takes them to invite, I just start like pulling out random currency and like adding it to the trade. So like, I'd like to buy your item for 1 divine. I'll give them 2 divines, and then like an inventory is scarabs. I don't know. I don't care towards the end of the league, right? Because it's just gumball to me.
That's fair.
Lance, what build are you playing? Because I know Pox is going to be playing RF. Obviously, GHAZZY's playing Minion, so I'm not even going to even bother asking these guys. So, what build are you playing, Lance?
I'm gonna go with Zerker. I have always liked melee slams, but like for lack of a better reason, they've just sucked like the past few leagues. I believe it's most likely going to end up that some of the best skills are still some of the best, like Molten Strike and those sorts of skills are probably still going to outclass slams. But I think slams are good enough where I'm going to get some of the satisfaction of one tapping some bosses, where you get the big chunk of HP going down. So I'm just going to go few automated exerted war cries, maybe one I'm actually doing myself, and then just hitting ground and making lots of monsters go up in smoke in one hit. That's the hopeful plan. We'll see if it actually works or if it ends up just sucking. That's
You
the
know
other
what
part of it.
slam skill you're going to play yet?
I'm leaning towards the ground slam of earth shaking. I want to do EQ. EQs are like my favorite slam because it's like just a big circular slam that I like that look the most. But I think with Berserker, my attack speed is going to be too fast for the timer of the aftershock, where I'm just going to brick it. So I was like, I probably have to go with a different skill.
Funny that you say that because that slam skill is the sexiest looking slam skill in the entire game. If
I need to
you
look
have
at
the Spectre with it. So, we had the alt quality gems before. So there was Forgotten Corpses from Desecrates. That one is a mixture of different abilities with different color themes, and they're using that slam, or they're flicker striking, landing on the ground, and that effect of that slam happens, but in purple color. It looks beautiful. It's insane. You should look it up. Oh, I'll send it to you later, actually.
I think
that
I
looks
might
really good.
know. Did you say the flicker shades?
Yeah, I believe that's the name of them, right?
You know what's funny about that? I actually made a build with flicker shades like 2 leagues ago because I liked the aesthetics of them.
I know,
Unironically.
right?
I was like, these things look cool. They're not as good as the other ones, but I don't care because
They're terrible.
it's literally as a cool purple earthquake.
Yep. They look good.
For me, the best visual looking ability is maybe volcanic snaking.
You know, volcanic snaking, just going all over the map. You don't even aim and it's going everywhere. I was kind of bummed out when I came to the conclusion that holy crap, this only hits like one time usually, because it's supposed to chain around and get multiple hits to like actually have like decent damage. And I was loving it when I'm going through a map. But the second I got to a boss and like only one hit was occurring, and then it would go off to who knows where doing nothing.
That sucks.
Yeah, the depression set in a little bit.
It sounds like the one of the million iterations of the Dancing Dervish AI issues. Have you seen that video where the complaints of it, where they did a Shaper map? So once you do the first phase of Shaper, you have to go through the gauntlet to the next one. So once you enter the first gauntlet, your weapons would be like, I'm out of here. And you just fucking just bolted, trying to get to Shaper on the other side of the universe. And you're just standing there and be like, yo, guys, I got a gauntlet to kill. So you had to stand next to the boss that spawns the portal and just click convocate, so the weapons would come back and just all the way back to the boss again and go through the target till he died. So go back in. It was insane.
Horrible.
That's
something
horrendous
else.
bug.
That's like scuff on a new level.
Yeah. Still bugged, but not that bad. So the new league mechanic is very interesting. Like me and Dean were talking about it before the show, and it's like I just love this whole passive progression approach. I want to hear your thoughts on it. We can start with you, Pox. Like, what do you think, or what's your take on the passive progression approach to the league mechanic? Are you excited?
Huge fan. As someone who loves, addicted to the base game of Path of Exile, anything that allows me to keep playing base Path of Exile, I really like. I don't want a league mechanic that's. I mean, again, I'm totally fine with league mechanics that alter the game because when Sanctum came out, I loved it. Like, I didn't know I needed it, but I loved it. I don't do it now because it's much more difficult, but because we had Necropolis as the pass league, which really took away a lot of the time in your map, I'm excited to have one that kind of promotes me to go back to what I like.
Fair take. What's your take, Lance?
I know there's like the part the part in the back of my head that's like initially I saw the timer, I was like, oh no, is it gonna be like MMOE, which I'm not necessarily a big fan of, like the MMO style of like log back in, feel like you have to do it. But the more I like looked, I went back and looked back at some of the stuff today. It kind of just makes sense of like I see all the resources get piled up. They don't seem to have a cap. It's not like Soul Fight where it caps out and then you have to go do it. So you can basically ignore it, and then when you do decide to do it, you can just YOLO all of your resources as much as possible. Because I was looking at the shipment thing, and it seems like you could just jack up the meter and send whatever away, and then like that's the level of commitment you can choose to have versus going back more often. It doesn't seem to really change the base resources you get because the base resources have to come from maps to begin with when you do the mines and stuff. So I'm honestly kind of really excited about that little. Oh, I'm in a map and I see the little notification. Your shipment has arrived. I think that's gonna be a nice little like dopamine kick. Of like, oh, what do we got now?
You know why? Because you don't have to right click and invite them to your party. You just go and it's convenient for you.
That's
Not really,
kinda
but yeah,
true.
it's
I like the idea of the dopamine kick. Like, it's such a small thing. Like when it comes to mobile games, the type of mobile games that I liked playing when I did was games that was like, hey, I'm gonna build 1,000 troops of this and that unit. Yeah, come back in 2 hours. Minus the paying to speed it up process. But like I like that kind of game experience because then I could do what I think is fun, and then I'll get a notification, be like, oh yeah, that building's now done. Instead of having that building be instant, then it doesn't feel like I built it. It's just there. It's not something I just added. But now it feels like you're actually working towards something with building up the settlement. But what's your take, DM, on the league mechanic?
My initial thought is I feel like it's going to be hard to balance. Like that's kind of where my head goes with it, which is the resource game passive. I think that's dope, but I feel like it might be kind of hard to make it either not feel like it's not enough. So they make it where you don't get too many resources, or you make it where it's like almost too good. Like trying to hit it right in the middle where it's like not too many passive resources are being dumped and not so good that you feel like you're wasting your time doing other things. You know what I mean? Like hitting the balance, I feel like is going to be. I'm interested to see exactly how many resources you actually get out of this. Because the photos they look pretty juicy. Like they look juicy enough where it's like.
Yeah.
I'm not that great at currency acquisition. Harvest was the best I'd ever done. I get a couple of divines maybe in the map. I was feeling pretty good when that would happen. But then I look at this and it's like these one loot boxes basically are giving more loot than I've been able to figure out on my own killing the maps. So I'm just kind of curious to see it's like how much do we actually have to get it set up in order to return that kind of currency? Because it seems like it's a pretty low skill floor. Like if all I have to do is slide the thing over, click a button, wait and see if I get my currency, I feel like that's such a I don't actually have to do anything myself. It's so easy to the point where it seems like a lot of people will be able to do that very easily. And so if they make it where it pays out a lot, that's kind of like it's curious to me how much more currency is going to be dumped in with that, plus the fact that there's now a currency exchanger as well. That my gut instinct is there's going to be a lot of currency dumped in the market.
Fair. But yeah, like the pictures, they were like nutty, like pages after pages of just rewards. But I mean, to my understanding, it felt like that was kind of gated behind this kind of high risk, high reward kind of thing with a shipment, where you could lose your units and whatnot, and it would take a long time before you get that. I think it's kind of good for casual players as well. Like, you can play their hours of the night, send the voice out for a 10-hour shipment, spend some time with a wife or a boyfriend or whatever, and then wake up the morning after, collect the loot, ship them out, go to work, come back in the evening. I kind of like the approach of that they don't feel like they would fall behind too much. But then again, inflation kicks in, and if everyone's doing it, then the market's going to adjust. So, but I'm excited though, for sure.
I was going through like looking at it like frame by frame to get like a reference point of how much loot was in each thing, and as they like ramped up the different boxes, which had more and more loot, it was kind of covered based on like the UI they had, where it said shipment complete, but you could kind of see like the bottom one had like 30,000 of the dust resource and 50,000 of this other resource. So I don't know how much stuff scales versus T16s versus low tier maps and stuff. Because like I see people in some of the videos, like they pick up 200 ore, and then I see them shipping out 50,000. I'm like, is that just the difference in T16 and a T1 map? And what's that scaling going to be like in terms of it? The loot you get back was clearly based on the stuff you're sending.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like you said, DM, like balancing is going to be a nightmare for a mechanic like this. And I hope they go core and haven't even touched it yet. But it's like having these currencies or the rewards you get they're collecting scale with the tiers going to be pretty natural. I think it's very logical that the initial upgrades will be very cheap. You can achieve that by farming the lower tier maps, but if you want to get that next one, it's going to cost you 20,000 of X currency, but you only get like a couple hundred for running a white tier map, but you get a couple thousand running yellow. Now you're more incentivized to progress your character to run those yellows because then you can do a couple maps to start the next upgrade, etc., and ramp it up that way. Kind of makes sense. An easy way to incentivize people to not just sit in their hideouts.
How are you guys making your currency this league then? What's your plan?
Profit crafting.
Is that pretty much what you do every time then?
Yeah. I want to do a mirror helmet again.
Okay.
Crafting is really good currency. I like doing that in a lot of leagues to some extent. Usually I end up crafting my own gear, and it basically depends. If it's a good build, I can resell the item. If it's a bad build, then I've lost all my investment, is how it typically goes. But I think Zerker Slams, I'm like hoping the damage is good. And if it's good enough, then I could start out with something like Sanctum, which is just like disproportionately better currency per hour than most things. And then I'll just YOLO some upgrades and just send it in maps and see how fast I can get to the harder bosses, which that'll dictate whether or not I make good currency or not, as if it actually is viable.
That's fair.
I'm probably doing the same thing I do, which is usually Expedition. I usually league start into Kaboom Expedition. Don't run logbooks because I don't care. I just go sell them, which is great because logbooks, everyone profits off them, so they always sell. If you're getting scammed, you always have a buyer. It's instant, literally instant. Then after that, it's usually pivoting it into whatever I feel like doing, whether it's always map juicing. Crafting for me, I always feel bad about profit crafting for my build because it's always accidental. So it's like I craft a body armor and someone's like, I'll buy your old one. And I'm like, no, have it for free. Because I just feel bad about it because I feel like I'm scamming them, but it'll just sell instantly if the build is popular anyway, right? So I usually just, farm some form of juiced content and then, go from there, something else.
I do a little different approach to that, actually. I do craft on stream items for my own build to show people how to do it so they can do it themselves. And then if people want to buy them, I tell people that whenever you buy something, you should never buy it for the price it's listed. If you want to trade something that costs 20 div, the first thing you'll do, and it doesn't matter if it's the only item on the market, you'll tell the guy, hey, I'll give you 18 divines for it. The dude's going to say yes or no. That's the worst thing that can happen. And more often than not, it'll be like, no, I'll meet you at 19. Now you just saved one divine. That's like, I don't care if I'm sitting on 50 mirrors in my inventory or in my stash. I will do that on most trades I do. And you will get more currency doing that. So I tell that to the chat. Then they do that to me with my craft items. Right? So I'll be like, yeah, okay, let's a little discount. But no, what's really good though when you do craft for your own builds is that other people do it, and then those markets gets completely crashed. So there's barely any profit. So people following the guides now have cheaper items to buy.
That's true.
So what about you, DM?
I'm going Omega Lottery jackpot dopamine. That's what I'm going for. So I'm going for Blight because I just want to get double anointed amulets and then see if I get an Omega one for sale. So that's pretty much my plan. That and farm the prismatic oils. I feel like everyone's going to want the new anoints. So, and I don't think people are going to want to farm Blight as much because it's kind of a lot different this time if you look at it. And I want to know what the salvage is too. They say you can salvage the towers, but it doesn't. It doesn't say what
Oh,
you
you went.
salvage into. It just says you can salvage the towers, right? So is
I
it?
feel like oil.
That would be
I'm
great.
guessing. I'm guessing oils because they removed the +1 oil node on the tree. So I feel like they want to get your oils back that way, but I don't know. And this would also make it so players are more incentivized. Oh, they also removed oil extractors, which help you get oils. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This would make it more incentivized that players use the towers because based off the level of the tier of the tower, it said you get more salvage rewards. So like people who are actually, doing the league mechanic like early game when maybe
Yeah.
you need the towers a little bit more, like the little CC tower setup. So I don't know. I feel like that's what it is, but I don't actually know.
I'm hoping not everyone goes blight this time because, like you're saying, extractors are gone. So maybe people are like, well, I don't want to just gamba the Trigas Permazic oils. And then when I do get one, it's going to be worth a whole
5
gigabyte.
chaos.
Yeah, God damn it. No. Hopefully a little
Everybody
bit more.
will need oils, right? It's just like essences, right? Every league launch, essences are really good money. And then everyone's running it. And then it's not good money at all. And then everybody stops doing it. But now the essences are out. And now the crafters wants them. And now essences is really good money
Yeah.
again.
It's actually so funny, the curve on it. I also hate you, by the way, Gazzy, because you dip into my market. So you make Essence of Horror a lot. What league was it? Essence of Horror was like 37 chaos per or something. I think it was like bugged on league start, and then you also dipped into it after. So I wanted to I was like, maybe I'll go for a mirror tier helmet. Oh, Essence of Horror is 37 chaos each. That's like, 4 or 5 for a divine. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? This is crazy.
We're going back to that cleansing the market topic. That's the one currency where we do that with, or we have to do that with, till now, to do the mirror helmet for minion builds. We use that there as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's actually funny. That's been like almost every league for the past 5 years.
You think for your big Gigacrafts this league, are you pretty pumped that Recombinators are coming back? Do you have any ideal crafts you're thinking about doing with that in mind?
So, I like numbers. I'm a nerd. So, I like Profit Craft is all about looking at dynamic and static craft costs and finding the average craft cost and comparing that to the worst sellable outcome to have a good margin. I feel like Recoms is basically div card gamba for the most part. At least we're gonna make it like big things. Like I'm not gonna shove a double influenced bone helmet in there and then having like the scrap little silk hood on the other side and be like, yeah, this is still good. This is a 50-50 I'm okay with. No, that's insane. So I like it, but it's more for the fun of it rather than the efficiency of it, I think.
Fair. I'm definitely addicted to Recombinators like a drug. I'm an absolute addict to the 50-50 and watching the mods pop in one by one.
The
Every
fun
single
is there.
hit just straight into the veins. It's gonna be even worse this league for me with Reflecting Mist coming back. Of just like that's just too many dangerous things for my addiction.
You don't even need the Orb of Corruption anymore. Look at that. Or the Vol Orb. Yeah. I think I remember watching your video, Lance, on how to weigh the odds to get the mods you want from Recombinators. I'm pretty sure I remember that. Because I was like the same guy in the boat. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I got this piece of gear and I got this piece of gear. Maybe if I put them together, oh, absolutely not. That's not. I mean, like sometimes it works that way, but when you're actually putting investment into stuff, like trying to get like your, double fracture, triple fracture with like the specific crafted mod, and then you realize you could get multiple crafted mods, and I'm pretty sure I watched your video on like mathematically how to go about approaching so you get like the 3 mods you want. So I also am very happy for this though, because on the lower end, since you do use gold for it, which I think is good, right? I think it was gold and like bring you the resources.
Yep.
For builds that have screwed up itemization, that's really hard to craft. Example, RF scepters and like +1/+1 amulets. I think this is a really good way in SSF specifically, where you want to identify items, because if you don't have a fractured base, it's okay to like identify these harder difficult items, and you find +1 all spell skill, and then you find your +1 fire. And you do have a chance of getting them together, and like, what are you wasting? Nothing, because it's not crafted yet. So I like it for that idea. Same thing with scepters. Like sometimes you just randomly identify +1 all spell skills. You're like, holy shit, that's so rare. But the scepter doesn't have any value, so you can just hold it. And this is literally what I did in SSF or in Sentinel League, and then I recombinating got my +1/+1 scepter, which is huge because that is a nightmare to craft. Even in Trade League, it's a big currency sink.
I'd be dropping a bomb, Eric. Like, yeah, okay, so one guy in the chat just mentioned it. You remember which league was the recomps in?
Sentinel?
Sentinel, right?
Sentinel. Yeah.
Did you play that DM?
I was not here for Sentinel League. My first league was Toda.
So, what we did back then is we equipped a chess piece called Cloak of Tavner Riley. And it gets insane. What it does is it makes magical item drop identified.
Oh.
So now your loot filter will look at the mods and like be like, yo, if it doesn't have those mods that are worth something, you're not gonna see it. But you know, you're gonna see +1 amulets popping up all over the field. And they sold for so much currency because people use the Greek comps for it. Yeah, there's so many things you can do in this league that's coming out now that's gonna be attractive to make currency with or use for upgrading things. I don't even know where to begin. It's absolutely nuts. But DM, do you know what the recomps are doing, or are you familiar with the mechanic?
It's a new mechanic. I mean, it looks like it just meshes two items together. The best I can tell, and basically it's just a lottery on which affixes and suffixes you get. I'm assuming on the ones on two items, which ones you get from here and which ones you get from here, which items are making them. I'm guessing because I've never seen the mechanic.
The main thing it's used for is making like double fracture. That's like the baseline easy crafts you can do. But generally, it's just all about taking like a mod you couldn't get somewhere and then putting it on an item you couldn't get it on. Like a good example is suppress on energy shield gear.
Okay.
Or suppress on armor gear. Stuff like if you do your armor stacking jug again, and you're like, how can I get some suppress on my gear? I have to use all these evasion pieces. You don't. You can transfer that mod that couldn't occur naturally onto the armor piece.
Okay. So it sort of makes the base not matter in the leagues that have Recombinator.
Yeah, a little bit. Gives you a little bit more power to bases that would be like worth less value to some extent or targeted for different things.
There is nice use for it in the much lower end as well. Like again, I go back to SSF since I play it a lot. Like say you find a pair of boots with, insane chaos res and res across the board, but you don't, for some reason you can't craft life on them or you can't craft movement speed. And then you find another pair of boots with maybe like also good res, but it has the movement speed. And you could try merging them together at a chance at pulling the movement speed over while retaining some resistance. And then that way you have like the best of both worlds, or you get lucky and you get an insane outcome, right? Because there is definitely like when you're just randomly merging equipment, it is very random what occurs. But if you are weighing the odds, like they both have a good life roll, they both have a movement speed roll, I'm hoping I get the chaos res instead of the fire res, then it's a little bit more deterministic on what you get, right?
This is how you guys feel about the fact that we have more map slots than ever, plus we have the Wildwood back for juicing. Like, do you feel like this is going to be I know they kind of changed Magic Find, but do you feel like this is going to be a juiced as fuck map league?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I feel like I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like there's so much content because of these changes that allows people to choose from a very large set of options that are all really good for the purpose of fun is one part, but for currency acquisition, which a lot of software players are going for. Like you can do, you can be DM crazy and do blight maps. Like there are those people. But you can always do expeditions. You can do your essence farming, or you can go delving. Like Shitstained Steve, which was impressive as shit, by the way. But there's a lot of things you can do, and all of them has a purpose behind it. They're not like meshed together. We're like, oh, but you want to farm essences? Yeah, the best way to do that is farm delirium maps without essences. That's how you get essences. Like, it's nothing like that anymore. They feel more like they're specialized, and you could choose to emphasize that with the Atlas tree more with this league than ever. Like, am I the only one who feels that way?
I mean, no, there's definitely a lot of changes right now, right? So you're referring to like we don't know the best way to farm like X League mechanic yet, right? That's
Yeah,
what.
it's hard to pinpoint. Like people
I
just
think
do
it
whatever
can
they
be
want.
like a little black and white to get to maybe. Well, it's. I think it's pretty obvious to maybe like say the 80 percentile. Like you're gonna take all essence nodes on the tree. You're gonna use these essences, but I think there's always room for something sneaky that pops up. Like for example, in last league, you had the tormented spirit farming with Beyond, right? And then you had like that one specific node that made it so that when you would spawn the tormented spirit, it would spawn the Beyond. So like you're using a tormented spirit scarab for the Beyond. So it's not the Beyond scarab, but there's like synergy, and I think that that can kind of creep its way through. I think they're obviously trying to cut down on that, but I do think there's a little bit more than meets the eye, which is nice with farming league mechanics for sure.
Mm. I'm just excited to see all the options. But no, to give a shorter answer to your question, DM, I feel like it's definitely going to be juiced up in a good way because of diversity. I really hope that it's not going to be this is the one golden ticket everybody's going to do till it's burnt down to the ground, but rather, the blight farmers will make their money from their blight amulets and the oil,
Please.
and the essence farmer will make their currency from the essences. So they're all kind of specializing in their little corners on the markets. And I like that approach to it. I'm very excited for it. What's your take, Lance, on the DM's question?
I feel like there's always, as long as they keep having mechanics having at least one unique resource that's kind of like pretty tied to them, then there's always going to be some level of you do have that thing that makes it value. Like I think the example I thought of, the most obvious of this is like Ultimatum. They initially added it, and everybody was like, "Yo, this loot is trash." But then a couple guys were like, "I'm gonna farm it because no one else wants to farm this because it's super dangerous and it's RNG to some extent of like what stupid mods they give you depending on what stuff you're doing." And then it turns out it was really valuable per hour because they were selling their catalysts for like ridiculous
Yep.
currency.
Yeah.
Like I think I paid 3 divines. I don't know if it was 3 divines, but like for example, like the tainted catalysts, I think the dude drops like 10 of them if you get the ultimatum guy, and they were selling them to me for like 1, 2, 3 divines or something to pop.
Yep.
Because I was like, I need this for my amulet. I don't want to go farm ultimatum.
I was advocating Ultimatum actually in the league. Everyone hated it because RF Chieftain was really good for it because you just go 90 all res, full fizz taken as, and you go Defiance of Destiny, you AFK all the content, and it's literally just free. And the best part about it, you don't need an atlas. I ran white maps with Wellspring of Creation just to make it easier to literally AFK, like actually AFK. And Chieftain ignores like 3 extra ultimatum mods. And in SSF, people were like, "What is with your catalyst stash?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I just wanted to see what you could get from it." I mean, I think I got this is without the scarab. I had like 14 bosses. This is before they introduced the one for the guaranteed one. And I thought it was good because I think PoE is in a unique scenario where because there is so much currency, and as Lance was saying, things are tied to specific league mechanics. If people deem something shit and it's such a meta-driven game and people stop doing it, that makes a demand, and now all of a sudden there's a reason to run it because no one else is doing it. Somebody's going to want to buy it. That's just how it is, especially when it's catalysts, right?
Yeah. Especially now with the whole currency exchange, where people who couldn't be asked to sell their items or the bubblegum currency they're now incentivized to do so. I feel like it's going to be more of a situation where people are like, I do this because I think this is fun, and I will make currency because whilst having fun. And well, you still have the meta gamers, but I think we're going to see more of that with a spread of people doing the mechanics that they enjoy the most. But obviously, like you said, it's something, we talked about essences, super popular or super good in the start, then it's nothing, and everybody stops doing it, and then back here, and then we go again. So it's going to be fun to see. And I don't feel like we've had this type of diversity in terms of like juicing in that sense. But another part of your question, DM, you talked about the 6 map device slots, and that kind of leads into like the scarabs, right? I was never really a big fan of like super juicing with scarabs. Like I chucked in a bunch of them every now and then, and I had fun with it. But I like as soon as there was like a big combination, like you talked about the Torment of Spirits with the Beyond thingy and stuff like that, I think that's really cool. The problem I have with it is as soon as a good strategy is found, it's like this is the meta, and all of those scarabs skyrockets in price, and like
Yeah.
you gotta be there when it happens to make the most out of it. So I'd rather just do my thing and then sell the scarabs to those people that are doing that. That's kind of like how I do it.
This is gonna sound dumb, but like anytime it's guaranteed currency at like per hour, I immediately hate it. So if it's like if I know that I can make between like 1 and like 50 divines an hour, but complete RNG, just complete RNG gamba, or I can make like a guaranteed 45 an hour. Like I'm always gonna do the 1 to 50. Like I don't care. So the whole like this is the best meta. It's guaranteed to be the most money. As soon as that type of thing arrives in almost any game, by the way, like the whole min maxing thing. We could be talking about RuneScape Goat acquisition. Like it's the same thing for me. It's like I immediately get bored. Like I want to have I don't want to go like clock into work to make a guaranteed per hour. I want to just play the game, like whatever I find fun, and then have a chance at like popping off. Like that's always exactly how it is for me. So I don't think I can. If it is super juiced and it's like someone figures out, okay, well you wear these 3 scarabs and with this one on this map, and then you have exactly 42% whatever, and then it's a billion divine. Like I'm just not gonna do it.
I don't like that.
I resonate with that a lot. One of the like a lot of times I'll be streaming and I'll have people come in and they'll say, "What's a good mapping strategy?" They'll ask questions like that. And I have such a bad time answering that question because my brain just wants to go, I don't want to tell you what to do because I don't know what you find fun.
Yeah.
And I just like, I just want to say just YOLO something because for me, I'm always just swapping around to different things. Try a boss here, respec my Atlas halfway. It's completely disjointed. It was half a strategy over here and then I didn't have enough respec, so I just started doing one thing and left the other thing like it was and just try what looks fun, regardless of whether or not it's going to be the profitable way or not. That being said, though, I have been tryharding Sanctum on League Start, so maybe I'm being a bit countered by my own.
Explain that to me, because I always hear like I tried Sanctum once. I did one run of Sanctum ever. I made like 3 buildings in or something. That I immediately got destroyed. So what is the deal with Sanctum? Everyone always says Sanctum's like where all the money is. You're like just printing divines, 50 divines in a day, 100 divine, no problem. Just go do fucking Sanctum and you'll be rich. So explain to me Sanctum and why I keep hearing about this being an absolute just money printer.
So Sanctum is basically, it doesn't really have much of a specific reward based on its like mechanic. It has relics, which is like some level of loot, and then everything else is just raw currency. So like the big hit doing blight farming is you're farming gold oils, prismatic, that sort of thing. The big hit for Sanctum is just a divine. It's just raw currency. And like early league, raw currency is like so valuable. Like your first few chaos, you can buy rares that are just like insane because everybody's picking up stuff, IDing stuff. The market's kind of crazy, and raw currency is really good. Sanctum, however, after the first few days, you start getting a scenario where all the people that are running Sanctum need to buy various uniques or different resources from people that are actually playing the game. Like I was in Sanctum till like 90 something last league. And I went and I bought the guy who farmed a brutal restraint from doing Legion and mapping, and I hadn't killed Katava yet. Okay. And basically what ends up happening is it tanks in value after a week or something because its proportional value compared to the actual resources that people want to buy goes up. And then I think it rebounds at some point when people stop doing Sanctum because Original Sin becomes basically a mere tier drop, which is the super rare relic. And it becomes more of like a lottery situation where the raw divines doesn't really keep up with other strategies. But you hit that one original scripture and you've been running 500 Sanctums and all of a sudden your total loot just doubled from the one drop. And it spikes it from a good to a decent to a really good return based on the time. But it's mostly just like raw currency and you need a lot of damage to do it.
So
there is also, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to ask another follow-up.
I was just going to say one nice early thing about Sanctum, similar to Expedition, is all the raw currency Lance is talking about too. Raw chaos at the start of a league can very easily be invested into divines at maybe, I don't know how, 30 chaos each, 40 chaos each, 50 chaos each, before divines have had time to actually go up in price. So it's a very easy time to just invest your raw chaos into that and then watch it, in the matter of 3 days double.
This is some crypto bro talk right here, is what I'm hearing. Get your money in early.
Oh, it's not like
Dude,
basically like
You
chaos.
snowball.
Yeah, like chaos orbs and divine orbs are like the golden standards, right? But since like there are no divine orbs on the first 5 minutes, well, actually no, there is no divine orbs in the first 5 minutes of the league launch. That doesn't exist. So what happens is the inflation is gonna kick in hard, and it runs fast because of people doing investments with it. But this happens with everything. Like for example, the Essence of Horror that you talked about. I don't know how many times I've been like, I'm gonna craft a mirror helmet, so I'm just gonna buy essences of horror now that they're cheap. And then I'm like, 5 days later, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. I'll sell them in a bulk. It's just quadrupled the investment. But like when I say quadrupled, a Chaos Orb in the first couple of hours of a league is so much currency. It's valued is insane for what you can get for that Chaos Orb. But the inflation is hurting it. So normally people want to do investment buying things that goes up in value rather than diminish. And Chaos Orbs are going to diminish in value. So that's why you'd always want to get rid of your Chaos Orbs and buy something else that's going to cost more later. So the quantity of Chaos Orbs goes up later. So that's basically what a lot of people are doing.
I have an economy question.
My favorite thing of the league start with like the crazy inflation is I can't compete with the guys that want to play 16-hour, 18-hour, 24-hour session. I need sleep. So I end that first day at like the 10 hours or whatever when it's about midnight or whatever o'clock for me. And I go, okay, I got this much currency. I'm going to go buy some Grand Spectrums. I'm going to buy a Synth Int Ring because no one's freaking trying to buy this right now. And then I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and then see if my investment's paid out. I always like try different things. Some things that doesn't work out. Other things I cash in big, and it's a fun little investment to then go to do before bed.
Do you feel like this league is going to be way easier for people to exploit a certain niche? Like now you can buy everything automatically. So let's say you're some dude who snowballed from the beginning. You have like 50,000 divines you're popping off. You find one of the like more niche least traded items on the currency exchange. You buy out the actual entire market and run it dry. And then instead of having to like price fix or whatever at the top, you just buy literally all of them because it's automated and you set your own price.
That's what I was referring to before. I think that that will not happen early on because more people will engage with trading. So you're going to need ridiculous amounts of wealth to pull it off.
Compete.
But reaching ridiculous amounts of wealth, if you know what you're doing and you have experience with it, is a lot of work, but it's not impossible. And if you then combine that with a group of people, now you can truly become some really pesky bad actors on the market.
Market manipulation is a problem that happened in RuneScape too. When the Grand Exchange opened up, eventually they had to solve it by adding tax fees on the either end of it, so you couldn't influence it. But you could very easily find the margins in it, buy and sell, and then drive prices up as a big group of people if you have enough currency. So I'm super curious. Like the only thing we have is gold, but that's not tied to the price of the currency we actually care about. So we're not getting a percentage shred of like the chaos we're spending or something to a point where you can't manipulate the market. It's just gold, which in and of itself basically has no value. It's just the thing that we have to do in order to be able to trade. So I'm kind of wondering, like big groups, like you're saying, could very easily influence this market if it's all quickly tradable. And you have a big enough, really, it's going to snowball, right? You'd have a big enough pool, you take over one of them, then you take over the next one.
I think it's going to be very hard to do. It will require a tremendous amount of wealth, but because of the gold, it also requires those individual characters with that currency to have farmed enough gold to pull it off as well. So that's also a big factor, right? And because of that and how the market will work, it is delaying that. It will inevitably happen. But what I think will be a higher risk of happening is something similar, but not targeting saying, hey, that market will do that, because there needs to be a demand for it, right? What I think will happen is we're going to have people that hit a really good amount of wealth, then look at streamers, YouTubers, and Reddit to find what is the next meta build. Oh, it's this one. What is used to crafting the most mandatory item for those builds? Oh, it's Essences of Insanity. And you guess what? Let's just triple the price of that and buy everything. Because then the demand is automatically going to happen. And we see people do this with builds in general. I'm not sure if you guys remember, I'm sure you, Lance, remember, at least when Poisonous Rest got popular. Severed in Sleep, the Covenant went from trash prices to multiple divines over the course of like 3 or 4 hours. Those 3 hours, if you have a lot of currency and you can instantly buy it from an auction house, the market will be gone and the prices will be 5 times as high.
I mean, regular items are still normal trade, so it's going to be stuck to the.
Yeah, that's why it has to go one step further, right? Like a popular build emerges, something that's crazy, and then you'll be like, oh, it needs.
It would be dependent on the key crafting resource, like the special new runes based on whatever.
Yeah, because
high-end craft is tied.
Yeah, profit crafters will want to make money. Oh, this build's getting popular. Let's profit craft the items that the build's using. Oh, it needs to do this. Checks the auction house for the crafting material, and we have a group of people who just quadruple the prices of those things. I'm like, okay, that's funny. So I think that will happen for sure. But are you guys concerned? Like, Pox, are you concerned about this happening? Like, I think it's inevitably will happen.
Concerned? No. Do I think it will happen? Absolutely. But I would rather them take the risk than us still being stuck with the old trade system.
Agreed.
That's how I feel. You know, like every time Chris Wilson kind of like, and I love Chris 100%, but anytime he talked about that interaction between players, I think of the first time I played Diablo 2 as a kid. I still shared a room with my younger sister. I booted up and I joined some random person's game. And they traded me, and they did not speak English, and they just put in a bunch of loot, and I was like, yes, please. And then they declined and kicked me, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? Bro. So that's like what the first thing that pops into my head, and I don't care for that interaction anymore. Like, sure, sometimes you get some funny, wholesome moments, like for sure that happens, right? But I just want to play the game, right? So I want to just spend my money, exchange for currency, and go back to what I'm doing.
Wanting to play the game in 2024. What's wrong with you?
Or in concept, 100%. You just get people to play the game for you. I mean, just get your own runners to run your maps.
Yeah, we do. How many? We get 3 of them, right? Didn't they show 3?
Farm bots. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't actually know.
So that's their way of countering the bots, the cheaters. Just give it to everybody. Here's your own bots. Farm.
I mean, would you rather they do this though than constantly? I mean, I'm not going to say it's an excuse. I don't know what happens on game development, but I always hear like bots are going to ruin this if you introduce this. Like that's usually what happens.
I feel like you can't play around bots. Like I feel like people are going to be piece of shits, and no matter what game we're talking about. So it's like just make the game good and endure what because again, I'm going to use RuneScape as an example. You see what happens when you play around the people that are fucking up the game. Like you have like the limit where it's okay, there's 3,000 gold trade limit, everyone quit the game. Okay. Or you start adding in like, okay, there's issues in the game that we need like monetization or something like Squeal of Fortune, and it ruins the game. So it's like anytime you play around the things that you're like worried about, I feel like it consistently ruins the game. Just make the game good, and then don't worry about what could potentially happen, I guess. But then, I don't know. Then we run into like the last Epoch issue where there's dupes and shit that happen in literally every economy and kind of ruins the league. So maybe there's the other side of it.
I'll be first and say I think that's more of an Epoch issue. As much as I love the game, there are just a lot of bugs with that game. That's just yeah.
Yeah, true.
But I would rather they take risks, especially with a game that's so old. With PoE 2 like on the rise, I mean, I still believe PoE will absolutely be a thing. Not everyone shares that opinion, but I think they should take a risk, especially if they feel that. Because Mark was saying that, okay, now we know it's bad because I myself whispered 100 people and nobody freaking responded, right? So he probably even hit the trade limit whisper. It's like, God damn it, I can't do anything. I have to wait. Like now I just can't do anything. So, what do you think, Lance? Do you think they should take risks?
Absolutely. Like it's like. The way Mark put it is like he said we could do something safe, but then it's boring, and I kind of agree. If they add something where it's just like, oh, this is just something we already have, or we know it's this, and it's like something you can actually contemplate that it's already tangible to something you already know, it's kind of like, whatever. But if it's something where it's just, holy cow, I don't know how this will really play out, then we just want to see if we can improve something. I'd much rather than take the risk on it, especially that way with trading being that it has happened so many times where you get to the point where, especially when league trade dies down, you're pinging people after people after people, no one's responding. It's just like, this is not a fun experience at all.
I'll be the first person to explain the experience. You decide that you want to buy an item. It doesn't matter what it is. So you go down the list and you already go down 10 people. So now you start clicking and clicking and clicking, and you just click like maybe 1 or 2 people. Nobody says anything. Like, okay, you click 2 more people. Nobody says anything. All right, I've had enough of this. Click, 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 click. You go through the whole list, and then all of a sudden you get like 7 party invites at the same time. So you accept it and you decline 6 of them. And then you go in the guy's hideout, and then you see the prompt. So you click yes. And now you just accepted a party invite from another guy. And then you're like, God damn it. So then you right click the guy and you try to trade, and now your interface is blocked because of all the other invites, and you're like, seriously, like, take my currency. I just want the item. Just take it from me, please. Then I feel bad, and then I give them more currency. Yeah, I love the trade bots. They're so good. It's like the duelist sitting in the little grass, and you just go there, and he goes to his stash, and then he goes back and he trades you, and then he waits like 5 seconds, and then you see the bulk, and then you're like, all right, I'm done. Awesome.
Yeah, but the worst part is when you accidentally accept the party invite to someone else, the bot doesn't trade you.
Broken.
So
He's broken.
Yeah,
you see all the other people. You see all the other people go in, and you start whispering. You know the funniest thing? One time, one of those people responded to me. I guess they were watching my stream. Maybe they were running the bot in the background doing homework. I was like, this guy's a bot. I know it. I know it's a bot. And then like 20 minutes later, they messaged me, and they're like, I'm not a bot, by the way. I'm like, what? You literally...
Classic.
Yeah, they literally, like, they did the duelist in the grassy area, you know, moving to the stash and then trading me 5-second delay item. I'm not a bot, by the way. I'm like, wow.
You know, it's kind of crazy. Like, that's something like trade systems. They're gonna be like, there's always the pros and cons, right? There's pros and cons of the current one. There will be pros and cons of an auction house, right? But I think it's going to be for the better. But when it comes to bots specifically, the crazy part is that there is obviously flipper bots that bought certain parameters of the market to get them bought in singular and sold in bulk. Those bots, apparently there's bots that also profit crafts for you. So they would do this and trade whilst crafting as automatically. But with this auction house now, they can't do all of this. Like, there will be bots. It's gonna happen inevitably. We can't prevent that. But now they will need to get gold as well. So they can't just sit in the hideout and just
They're gonna have to advance.
They have to do more. Right? It's not gonna prevent it entirely, but there will be a lot of people that's not gonna do it now. So hopefully it'll be for the better. I'm actually kind of curious with one question specifically for you, I'm actually listening to us talk about market and you know, all this, having a very fresh experience in PoE. And now you're talking about going soft core trade. Like, are you more or less excited about going into it after listening to us talk about market stuff?
Yeah, the same. Like, I personally, I think that the issues that the game has when they arise, I normally just, it fundamentally doesn't ruin my experience, because my experience is so simple. It's just I'm trying to achieve things in the game still that are like basic things in the game. I'm not guaranteeing that I get all the Uber kills every run. I'm not getting all the Void Stones immediately in my first hardcore. Like, the game's not solved for me. So these issues that tend to relate to like min-maxing or what's the best economy or this could ruin this part of crafting or something, like, none of that really affects me, because my goal is still pretty simple. I managed to beat all Ubers on softcore before the tier 17, so now I gotta go back and re-get the checkbox. So, okay, I beat all the Ubers again. Yeah, I gotta do it again. So that's just my focus for this time, and trying to make enough currency to get a Mage Blair Headhunter, because I never had one. You know, my strongest build ever was my Bone Shatter last season, the hardcore, and I had like 4 million DPS, and I was feeling very good. And I made it all the way to the Uber Uthred in the Citadel or whatever, and I lost my guy, right? But I walked in blind and got about 50% and fucking died because he's actually, like, kind of insane. So there's still plenty of the game left for me to experience. And the best item I've ever owned was a ring I sold for, like, 8 divine or something. So, like, I'm not making mirror helmets. So most of these problems you're talking about are, like, stuff that makes you concerned or something. It's, like, probably doesn't affect me. I'm such a lower common denominator of just enjoying the base game that I don't have enough experience of the economy where I'm like manipulating in hundreds of divines. Like I couldn't feel the difference that we're discussing anyway, because when I get a single divine, I'm like, oh my God, that's one divine. It's so exciting, you know?
Trust me, it doesn't matter how much currency you have in your stash. You hear
always
that
get
swing sound. Like it really doesn't matter how much you have or how decked out your character is. You hear that swing, there's a smile on your lips. So like,
I think so.
Unless you're an SSF, that's the only time you sometimes will not be happy about it. Because sometimes you'll be trying to farm a div card that's not that rare, and you'll just keep getting divines, and you'll even go into your loot filter and change your loot filter on your specific div card to play the noise of a divine, so you're conditioned to get excited. And then you hear the divine and you think it's the card and it just never appears. It happens.
Gyms are out, by the way, in case you guys haven't got like 13
What?
messages in each one of your chats.
Yeah, I
about
posted
it.
that's what
in
chat
the
was
chat.
spamming me about. What the hell?
New gyms are out, boys.
New gym.
See, it's so weird. I know that I'm not using the gems in my build, so I don't get excited for them. All three of you are staring at them right now. I can see
I am
all of your
staring.
eyes. Lance is zoomed into his screen. You're
Yeah.
DM. You're looking to the other side,
Fuck,
and
yeah.
GHAZZY, look at his facial expressions.
Yep.
Dude, I'll send you a screenshot, dude. Crushing Fist is 2,193.8% additive damage scaling. This is like the absolution change all over again. So they made it not do enough damage. It was reported it wasn't doing enough damage. Then the
They
patch
added
note
a
came
digit?
in and they're like, we're gonna give it 400% more damage. And that's for this entire patch notes. Melee is bad. Let's just give them hundreds upon hundreds, or now thousands of increased damage. Like, what the hell?
How do I get that for RF? What do I need to do?
Well, we've bitching mode for a decade.
I did that.
You've
it
been
didn't
pretty
work.
comfortable.
So then I
last
went
couple leagues.
positive. What?
Yeah.
They removed the base damage. What are you talking about?
Oh, the last couple leagues. I'm talking about like.
Okay,
past-
fair enough. They basically said if you're playing Pox's version, you have to convert to Lance's version. Otherwise, you can only get so far.
Right.
Then they added Adorned, and then they said, JK, it's too strong for too many builds. So we'll pull that power back. Which, to be fair, I agree with. I do agree on that. So
Fair.
I thought they already had all these gyms out already. I'm looking at these and like, was there changes in here they haven't announced yet?
no, they're just
They're
showing
showing us
the
level
high
20
max
20
levels.
versions.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because sometimes quality might do something you're unaware of. Instead of just like increased damage, right? Sometimes it's cooldown recovery or something else. I don't understand why there's so many digits in Crushing Fist's attack damage. Like, I don't
So
get the
many
effectiveness of that.
digits.
It's got 4 digits. Like, what is that? 4 digits? Is that even legal?
Well, it is a retaliation skill, right? So it needs to meet the condition to be used.
RF needs to meet the condition to do damage to kill enemies, but they clearly don't care about that part, right? So, you know.
The
Shut my
condition
mouth.
for right is fire. Stand still. Oh, he's dead. Okay.
In my defense, there's not too many skills to use the single target because it's basically a burning ground build anyway. But yeah,
That's what you call fire trap.
I mean, it's like because you know there's not many other skills to use, right? Like I'd use
The other
Scorching
fire
Ray.
dot skills kind of suck.
What'd you say, Lance?
The other fire dot skill options kind of suck.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately.
like
By
you
any
can like
comparison.
yeah. The problem is like once you are in like maps like white maps, you can actually use like Scorching Ray and a bunch of other stuff. But as you scale plus level, everything just fails in comparison to Fire Trap, unless you're playing the opposite variant where you're using Scorching Ray for like infused channeling and other stuff.
Does any of you guys know if you are able to block self-damage sources?
Say that again.
There are sources where you can hurt yourself. Heartbound loop, for example. Are
I
you
do
able
not
to
believe you
block
can. I don't think you can. You can self-inflict blocks. No.
I'm pretty sure you can't, right? It's like a
You think you
sacrifice more
can?
than you taking a hit. No, I think you can't. But I just wanted to verify it. So I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
works like you're sacrificing your HP rather than you taking an actual hit that you can block, right? It's like that crushing fist. It has RT built in. Well, you still crit. It can't be evaded, but it says that you can use this giga damage ability when you block a hit. All you have to do is just block a hit.
2,000%. And eviscerate's 1,300, and you hit twice.
Gladiator can reach 98% effective block.
Is that what it is? What's the? You guys know how to do math. I don't. I just know simple addition and multiplication. What is 75 on lucky? Is it like 92? Just 75.
75.
It would be 0.25 multiplied by 0.25. Then you would take 1 minus that. You'd reach 93.75% bulk.
Like, just that is already. I want to make a build around that. That just sounds fun.
So, let's check that the versatile combatant keystone, and the 2 gladiator ascendancy nodes. 22 points from level 1 and 2 ascendancies puts you at 87% block chance. With equipping a shield, no matter what monsters on it. 87%. Just like that. I'm like, what?
It's a lot of block.
Oh my god, it seems crazy, man.
You know? Well, you will take a hit every now and then. It's not entropy like evasion based. So it's pure random, right? Just percent based, just like it sounds. You will eventually, every now and then, take a hit. So you'll still need to be able to survive when you do take a hit. But 87%? I mean, Jesus Christ.
I think it looks awesome. I love block as a defensive mechanic. Specifically, I love glancing blows. Although I don't think you go glance. Do you go glancing blows on block ever or on Glad?
No.
It's too free to get block and spell block.
It just kills your mitigation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I say glancing blows, I always say glancing blows, and in my head, I'm saying recovery shield. Like, I don't ever put glancing blows without recovery. But still, like, it's too free to get so much block on Glad.
Yeah. About it. I'm actually using glancing blows on my Zoomancer now. Surprisingly. But no, it's like Lance said, lose a lot of EHP from it. Did you go block with DM with your build?
What, last league? Or the one I'm...
Yeah, you did. Was a Shield Crush build, right?
Well, the very first time I ever played the game, like when I went in blind, I played Shield Crush was my first build. And it was just like armor stacking, replica Dream Feather, Shield Crush. I think it ended up with like 400k DPS or some dog shit, right? And we weren't really like focusing on block or anything like that. It was like some ratchet impel, as much physical damage as I could get in impel type of build. So this time I'm thinking about, there was a POB that somebody linked me that had like 30 million DPS as a berserker Shield Crush that looked kind of crazy. But I'm thinking about going like Gladiator for Shield Crush this time. So I'm kind of back and forth on it. I still haven't figured out my base ascendancy. I want to do Juggernaut, but I've done Juggernaut like 3 leagues in a row, so I feel like if I do Juggernaut again, like people are gonna kill me.
Ooh, speaking of Juggernaut, since you guys are all reading the same thing, and I'm just thieving in OSRS, Lance, what do you think about Unbreakable changes?
Unbreakable?
Yeah, so nerf. It's definitely a nerf until gear, right?
They had to do it based on their change to endurance charges because
it's too strong. Way too immoral.
It's just like insane if they don't.
There's
an avenue where you can use it now with Divine Flesh, but it feels a little bit bad just because you're thinking about, oh, that used to just be a mastery I could click. Now I'm spending my entire ascendancy on it.
Yeah, like
at least it doubles your armor, and base armor is like
insane
a lot
now.
higher.
Yeah,
like you get 4. It used to be like the top roll of Glorious is like 4K. Which that was like a base chest piece that had, I think, like 800 on it or something like that. I forget what Glorious Plate was exactly. But they showed bases like 1,300 armor. It's going to be like 6K armor bases now instead of 4K.
Can I say something so funny? So, like, I know because you and GHAZZY are both really good at math, and I'm not, right? I go off of feel. So, did you know that Glorious Plate has a hidden, you do not have a movement speed penalty when wearing it? So you get 5% movement speed? Did you know that?
I did not.
That's the only thing I know about Glory. Yeah, check it. Go ahead, check it. Glorious Plate has no movement speed penalty of all the strength body armors.
No
It's like
shit.
wearing an evasion chest. Yeah, see, I know movement speed. So like one time I was playing my Juggernaut and I'm like, why do I feel faster? People are like, you're crazy, you're cooked. And I'm like, what do
Wait,
you? I
you
know I feel
notice
faster.
5%?
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. 100%.
Well, yeah, okay, okay. So
GHAZZY,
before min-maxing, definitely. No, I
play
definitely
the
agree with that.
same build for like 10 leagues.
Oh,
I know you
okay.
play minions, but you have variety. Play the same thing. Same
I
build.
don't play the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You notice anything. A single change, you notice. Believe me.
5% movement speed.
I had
You
no idea.
notice it. Well, because the problem is like, yeah, on the left side tree, I always was praising Juggernaut because Juggernaut gets like unstoppable, and that 14 is it 14%? You get like the 10% and the baby movement speed note. Actually, like is very noticeable, especially with like they cannot be slowed. So then when I noticed there's like that extra movement speed on Glorious Play, I was like, holy crap! You should actually check it. It's actually crazy. It's like a double win because it's like highest armor base, but also doesn't have the movement speed penalty.
And it lowers strength requirements than astral plates.
Is it? I didn't pay. I never paid attention to that. I just know Astral has the all res implicit.
Glorious is 191. Astral is... Oh, sorry, I'll take it back. It's the other way around.
180.
I'm actually heading into my Zoomers to see which body armor I put on it.
I'm so excited for these base changes in terms of like just to,
Yeah.
there's some like a special level of like I can feel more min-maxing, more just number a little bit higher when you have like the top roll of whatever base. And I think it's gonna be pretty exciting for Trickster 1, because I just like those ascendancies with the like the evasion energy shield bases.
I want to play Trickster so bad, so bad.
Dude, it feels so good.
You gotta
it
just
feels like
cook
a
me a build.
cheat code defensively.
You just cook me a build. I'll farm in SSF because I always play SSF. I farm for like 3 weeks. I play RF, and then I'm like, I can't go further. Going further just costs too much. So I want another build, but then I never know what to play. I'm like, Trickster sounds cool. The theme of having crazy high evasion with energy shield, the option of ghost dance, spell suppression, and then you have like the recovery mechanic. I'm just like, this is crazy. It's just how do I, like how do I get the like what do I do? What do I do with it, right? Because I feel like I can build defensive layers, but then I don't know what to pair as like a skill, right?
Anything. Literally, it's so generic.
Trickster is probably one of the coolest non-minion ascendancies in the game, in my opinion. It is so like you talk about with these different mechanics, and it just brings me back to the ED Contagion days. It was so good. Oh man, DM, you should have seen it. It was, oh, you would have loved it more than your druids in Diablo. Like it was so good. It felt amazing.
Doesn't take too much.
I was doing a when most people went and played other games, I started doing a hardcore SSF run, and I did Chaos Dot.
I saw a bit of that. I did.
I never was. I came to the game like late in Breach League, and I was a noob for a lot of leagues, and so I missed the whole ED Contagion meta basically entirely. Never played it, and then I started trying out. They added Blighted Contagion, which worked. It basically is like you don't actually have to aim, kind of, because it just shoots out. You know how Blight goes, like in a cone, and it works the same way, where it does that little spread. And there's a different level of satisfaction of that versus explosions. A kind of different feeling of just watching the disease just go proliferate out. And the unfortunate part is eventually you get to the boss and then you have to kill it, and then you realize you have no damage. But before that part, when you chain through a pack, oh, you're feeling good. Yeah, the damage was.
Did you die to reflect? You did, right?
I killed myself with Tempest Shield.
Yep. I've been in.
What?
Yep.
I ran a map with a bunch of like speed. It was like a back to basics with an onslaught mod and like frenzy on hit. And then I had Tempest Shield on, and I wasn't really having issues before because I wasn't really getting hit that much. And then I just stood in the middle of a strong box with my flame dash on cooldown, and I just got hit by a bunch of monsters, which I probably would have survived. They definitely did some of my health, probably, I don't know, 40% of my health, 50% of my health was actual damage, but my Tempest Shield hitting them, reflecting back to me, was enough to just clean me out.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's back to basics is very bad. Like it breaks PoE. Like there's too many things that happen that should not
I'm pretty
happen.
glad they're eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of it personally, but like we've all been like prepping up, guide updates and league starters for Friday. I'm having issues in general with when scaling a physical damage mitigation out with the changes that they've done. Because you don't really just move fist damage taken. So I know you're gonna have issues with that box unless you found a solution.
I
But
do
I
not.
wanted to throw the ball over to DM first. Like, how far have you gotten with PUBing stuff? Like when it comes to like finding a comfortable uh, template, if you will, for your PUB, or have you gotten that far yet?
So I've looked at a bunch of POBs. I've tried building my own stuff before, but the reality of it is that normally I have to look at like a base template. Like I'll go to PoE Ninja, I'll go to someone's guide or something. I'll kind of look at like a general concept of what I'm going to do. And the only one that I was able to learn after a while, where I feel pretty comfortable enough to like no longer look at that stuff and just kind of pick through, was Bone Shatter. But Bone Shatter seems to be not as fun this league because we're going to have like a rage attack speed issue. So because of that, I'm having to do a new build. And because of that, I have like 5 different POBs I've been looking at. I've been looking at like Zizzarin's Last Rate Gladiator, I think looks pretty good. Pox is trying to talk me into RF Chieftain over here. I want to relearn Shield Crush because that was
Have you
the
never
first
played
one.
Chieftain? Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt real quick. Have you ever played Chieftain or RF?
He has.
No.
Dude, you gotta do it, man. It's an experience.
That's what people
Best
keep
skill in the
telling me.
game.
That's what
So
people keep
so
saying.
like I don't shill for my build. In fact, I try to get people not to play it so that when they eventually play it, they say, "Why didn't you just tell me to play it?" This is like always the experience I have with people is they're like, "RF looks terrible numerically. I don't understand. Why do people play it?" They start playing it, they're like, "Holy shit. This is fun." Because so what happens is, and I'm not trying to sell you, I'm just being honest. So the Chieftain Ascendancy is equal to League Start. That's just how it works. It can do other stuff, but just think of Chieftain as League Start. It has this node called let's see, what is it called? Is it not Volaco? It's the other one here. It's called
Casaleo.
Tassalio's Cleansing Water. It basically means you just stack fire res. Cold res and lightning res do not exist. Why? Because 50% of your fire res splashes to cold and lightning, and you use a fire mastery that gives you 1 life regen per fire res. So you want to build fire res because it gives you life regen. Naturally, that life regen will scale off multipliers like life recovery, increased life regen rate. And then your another node on Chieftain, which you don't have to take, but is called Volaco Storm's Embrace. It makes it so your max fire res applies to cold and lightning. So if you hit 90 max fire res, you now have 90 cold and 90 lightning. So you've only paid attention to fire res and max fire res. And the craziest part here, whether or not you have built the character successfully or not, Chieftain will carry your ass through the whole game because of this other node called Hinakora's Death Fury. Hinakora makes mobs explode for an extra digit on every other explode in the game. You could add literally every other explode in the game and then multiply by 2, and that is the damage of Hinakora. The downside is it's only a 5% chance. The difference is 5% happens very frequently in PoE, right? Like if you saw that screenshot of a map I posted into the group, there's like 30,000 monsters killed in there, and that's a crazy exaggeration of like a normal map. But the point is that it happens so frequently. And when you remember how the ignite mechanic works, when you make that explode ignite, your build might do 400k damage on day 1. Your explode is doing at least 4 million. 100%. So it's crazy because even if you don't build the character correctly or you're very weak, the explode just trivializes content. And this is good and bad. It's good because your build feels great. It's bad because numerically, when you're fighting a boss at endgame, you don't have your explode. In maps you do, but on like an actual boss, you have to use like gimmicks at that point. So that's where there's like a big trade-off, right?
Like the EDC problems again.
Exactly. It's actually very similar to Chaos Dot. Very similar, because Chaos Dot gets a cultist or Trickster. I mean, the way Lance built it, Trickster. I say a lot of people in softcore are naturally going to build it on a cultist as like just force of habit. And you have Profane Bloom, which carries you, but then you get to the problem of single target and you're, maybe like 3 million damage on reasonable investment, and it's hard to go past there. I haven't actually played Chaos Dot in a long time, so I'm not sure.
It's pretty
See
rough.
what I can do tomorrow with it. Actually, quite excited. You know, they buffed it. I just don't think the buff is remotely close enough. But like normally, what GGG has done has been shaking up the meta, trying out new things by nerfing the top end and buffing some other parts, which I did do now. But I I couldn't think of any moment where SS Rank Contagion was nerfed. It was just the game evolved to a
Yeah.
state where it didn't perform as well as the
Yeah,
new stuff.
left behind.
Yeah. They normally would see those builds get nerfed. It just, fell off. That's all that happened to it. And then people forgot all about it. And now it's just a distant memory, nostalgia, like, oh, we remember the good old days. Kind of weird.
I think a
And I
large
can't.
part of that is we've gotten a lot of different sources of like different power creeps and stuff, which like applied to like hit based spells, applied to a lot of different attacks. Not really stuff that applied to Chaos Dot. And then on top of that, there was about one patch where they kind of nerfed some of the Wither, I believe, and some of the Despair Curse or something. And so what little life they had of like having some semi-acceptable damage just got taken down just another little notch, and it was like they got kneecapped and they were already suffering.
That's about right. Oh, man. Is there anything else about the 325 lead that you're specifically excited about, DM? We talked about trade. We talked about the league mechanic itself.
I mean, Blight, dude. Like, I'm actually a Blight enjoyer, Andy. So I know it's very controversial, but I actually really just enjoy killing Blight with the towers itself, like literally straight up playing the mini game. And I'm hoping that because they remove the extractors and there's like other shit to do, like with the juicing the maps and all that, like people just straight up aren't gonna want to do Blight. And I'm hoping there's not too many, and then I get to be the guy who's selling the Oyos, and hopefully the double anointed amulets can be like major pog, and some of those could be, worth some serious money. So I'm hoping that's my copium. I also want to know what the fuck salvaging towers do, and it seems like that there's more map sustain. Like if we just want to run blighted maps and blight ravage and stuff, it seems like there's more map sustain from that, from what I was looking at too. So that would be kind of nice because I was constantly running out of those before. So that's my copium is I actually want it to be like a pretty fun blight league.
I think that, like we talked about before, when very few people are doing something, it's super lucrative. Then when everyone's doing it, the demand just disappears and supply just eats it up, right? And then that shifts and we're back at it. So I mean, if you really like Blight, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. I would recommend sticking to it. Just don't change. And if it's bad price and you don't need the currency, don't sell them for a while. Give it a few more days, you give it a week, and then you sell them then, and it's gonna go up. Like that's basically how it runs. But if you really enjoy it, you just stick to it.
I'm
It's all about having fun.
kind of sad we don't have the. This is gonna sound like heresy, but I'm kind of sad we don't have the grave crafting, because that was how I got my axe. Like that's how I got my weapon. And now with how good the armor can be with the chest plates, I feel like being able to absolutely craft a Giga Chad chest plate through the crafting would have been pretty nice if I was going to play Juggernaut again this time. But, so be it. The actually having to do the grave crafting itself felt pretty terrible. So
We'll get you into basic crafting again. Once you get a handle on currency, remember when we were playing hardcore together and you get the basics of like fractured base and essence crafting, I'm not going to say you'll be happy that corpse crafting was gone because it was genuinely cool. I know Lance played around with it a whole bunch. Like the fact that you could like predict your outcome was very cool. I do agree. It's just too much for me. It overshadowed like everything.
I think I'll go. You go first, GHAZZY.
No, I was just gonna say the DM has learned basic crafting. We went through that together, me and DM some time ago.
I know
Hoping
basic.
you remember some of it.
I can make it like
and
an okay item. I don't know about like these Giga Chad, mirror items and all this shit that's going on, and I haven't interacted with all the mechanics. But at least I can make a basic item for the most part.
Almost no one does that. But before I send the ball over to you, Lance, the other part, I just wanted to mention that, like with the grave crafting, I only did it for one thing and one thing only. That was smack whatever corpses I had, and that chose the base item I wanted that I was going to profit craft on normally. So I did that. I didn't like the grave craft at all. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was gonna say grave crafting. I did a ton of. People were making fun about me being just going to digging the grave all the time, which I did do a lot of. But from my experience, I always like whenever we have crafting mechanic leagues, I always like just enjoy it for the novelty of seeing what new cool items we can make, which with what it has. But I was gonna say is I don't know if this is an encouragement to you DM or not, but you created a Giga Axe with the graveyard craft. The amount of like corpses and the time put into that, you might find with the recombination thing that they're adding back, you probably have a pretty good access point to craft something of that level or even better given the power of recombinators, double fractures, triple fractures, stuff like that. It gets pretty useful. And I think they made it more reliable by taking out the mutation part of it, which was one of the ways it would not work or have some RNG against it.
Is that when it got a random affix?
Yeah, it would.
Okay.
Mutations
Like the
were
Flatfire on
special
boots or whatever?
mods, downgrade, upgrade, transform, where it would like just change it into some random garbage affix or Sentinel mod or that stuff. Which it might still do downgrade, upgrade. I don't know if they consider that a mutation or not.
Mhm. I don't know. It's just a process of these goddamn corpses. And I mean, one would think that I would enjoy corpses, but not these. Not like, no. God damn. How many was it? 50 or 5 million?
60, 64. I don't know. I'm not the guy talking about
88,
Lance.
I think.
88.
Are you talking about the amount of corpses you could store?
Yeah. Not
It
like
was
that you
64, I
place
think.
to do a craft.
I think it's
It was 88 for place, I think.
Oh, yeah. So basically between 50 and 5 million of them. So it's like, it's just absolutely insane.
I
So
ended
Well,
my
to
was
get
right.
the 88 corpses, you had to stash 5 quad tabs
Yeah,
of corpses to
yes.
have relevant ones.
Yes. I ended my
Oh,
league
man.
with more than 25 tabs of corpses after
Jesus.
actually corpse crafting a bit, and I did not pick up more than half of them. But I also play the game a lot, so it is what it is. Because what happened is at first I was like, oh, I'll ignore them, and then people were like, but it's worth money, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll pick them back up. And then they're like, you have to sell them individually. I'm like, oh, I'm not picking them up anymore. That's okay. And then I
Yeah.
played SSF, and they're like, but FOMO, you're gonna miss out on the great crowd. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll pick them up. And people are like, you should check how many you have because I think you have way too many. And I'm like, I don't think I have too many. Like, how many do you have? I'm like, well, SF right now, maybe like 17 tabs. Like, you could probably stop picking them. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll stop. And then I tried to do like a Giga Gravecraft, so I wasted I used most of my like scarcer slash fracture attack. I used like a lot of them, right? And I even used a duplicate. And then I got a good outcome, but then I ran out. And then I went on autopilot, so I started picking up every corpse again. And I'm like, wow. Now I had to make a folder just to hide all of my corpse tabs because it was bigger than my standard stash tab layout. Like the standard stash tab layout will have like 15 tabs and then a folder to hide the excess. So I had a folder to hide the excess, and then I had to delete the folder because it was just corpse tabs because I had no more tabs left. And I was like, oh my god, this is too much.
Yeah. No, I filled up 3 quad tabs with corpses. Realized I should probably sell them. Sold 2 of them, 3 of them, I think. Like 3 types. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So I just stopped looting them and forgot I had them in my stash. That was my solution. I just really didn't like it.
I am very infinitely glad. It seems like all the resources of the new league mechanic is not
Stackable.
picked up or in my inventory at all.
Yeah. I didn't actually know that till you brought it up when you said you did a deep dive, and that like all of it is just you can just keep farming it and farming it and farming it, and then take like a lunch break and decide where you're organizing your. That's actually really cool. I respect that. I respect that GDG respects us who like to just play a lot and really just grind it out and not have to worry about inventory management in this league at least.
So speaking of
I
this league here, it's kind of a wrap up question. I'm curious. You guys all want to take a guess on what you think the audience retention will be like this season? Last league was some of the lowest, right? The one before that, some of the highest. What's your speculation for this one? Let's start with Lance. Take a shot at that, Lance.
All right. I'm gonna say best league ever. Best retention. I'm gonna cope. I believe. I'm a believer. It's melee league. It's here. League mechanic looks pretty chill. I'm logging in.
I'm in the same boat. Like the only league that comes close to this type of hype for me was Synthesis, and God knows how many years that was. And that was incredible. It was very bad start, but it was really good later. And this is the only league in my decade of playing this game where I feel like I want this to go core before I even touched it. And then obviously the fact that Melee are finally getting some love from being in the gutter since beta, I guess. Fox?
I like to play devil's advocate, but I can't here because I completely agree and think it's going to be amazing in terms of audience retention. But I will come at it from a different angle, something that GHAZZY talked about before. As someone who doesn't stream on Sundays from time to time, of course I will for the launch. I think that the fact that people who don't play as much feel like they can still, to an extent, keep up with other people, right? They can grind out their maps during the weekend and then say, okay, it's work time. So then they decide to send, okay, I gathered these resources. I'm going to work. I'm going to send all of these people out and then I'll just check, when I come back and then organize again. I think that's a 10 out of 10. I think coming from the casual player base, this is by far the best league we've seen in a long time. So, I mean, there's a lot of ones that are still very good for casuals, but this one is like, it seems like it's marketed towards everyone, including them as well. So I really like that. So I'm going to say 10 out of 10 for audience retention.
Yeah.
Pretty much mirroring my sentiments. I'd think the same thing. Being the Omega casual you're talking about, I'm excited to get the have my guy go run the maps for me. It'll be nice. Yeah. I can log back in and get my free resources. So I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess the same. All right. So I suppose you guys probably want to go read the new gems. We've been going almost 2 hours here, so we can probably wrap it up. You got any last points anyone want to make or topics you want to cover? Anybody before we call it a day here and send you on the way so you can look at the gems?
I'm going to say one thing just because I snuck some peeks at Retaliation.
Okay.
Those skills look so freaking cool. I hope they work and like actually feel good to play. Because I was reading over the gem descriptions, they seem like they all have cool things going, and the numbers are like, 2,000% crushing fist. Yeah. I'm gonna try to fit that into my berserker, and I don't even know how to get block on my two-handed axe build. Freaking dang it!
Just play gladiator.
Roomies.
Roomies.
No else.
I have a PSA. I learned a thing today after 10 years of playing this game, and that is how reduction of flat damage number is calculated. So have you guys checked those modifiers? There's a notable you can oil that gives you reduction. You take 10 less physical damage taken from it, and plus another one per your character level. So 110.
It's at the end of the formula, right? Which makes it very strong.
Well, it's kind of like in the middle.
Okay.
It's after mitigation.
Okay.
But before your increased damage taken from debuffs and ailments.
So it's still very good.
It is, yes, but
yeah,
PvP
very good.
Miscalculates it.
I see.
PvP says it's wrong, but it's actually good.
Because I always saw that annoyed, but I never. It was one of the secret annoyeds, right? Before or no? I thought there was always. Yeah, and then Immortal Flesh, I think I use on my RF builds, has it as well. And I always liked it because, a ZDPS build, you're always surrounded by mobs. You can't, I can't tell, but I can see that it makes a difference.
Oh, no, it definitely does. It's called persistence on the far left side in POV. I looked at it, I was like, I have no idea what this does. No clue. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. We did some tests. And it's good. Not great, but it's good. Very useful for melee builds, DM. So it might be something you want to look into.
I just want Shield Crush to be great again. I'm bringing. I want Shield Crush to become the god. The first build should bring it. It should probably bring that back.
Probably.
Persistence is -1 fizz per level.
Plus 10, so 110 at level 100.
Is that
I might need a new annoy for my build. Thanks, guys. That's a lot. That's a lot. When you think of mapping with regular mobs, that's a lot of DR. Especially when you're blocked with glancing blow. Oh, okay, I'll shut up.
What oils does it take?
It's a good
Right.
question. Are you going to farm those oils?
That's what I'm thinking.
Prismatic, indigo, and crimson.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So Prismatic's gonna be worth a shitload. Is what I'm hearing.
Probably, actually.
Blightly login.
Lightly.
Propaganda. Don't listen to it. Blight's the worst. It killed my hardcore gauntlet run. Screw Blight. I'm still salty.
Oh, it killed yours? I just fell
Dude,
asleep.
Blight's so rippy. It's so rippy, dude.
I lost
is,
my
yeah.
Viper Strike of Mamba to Blight as well. That's how I lost my hardcore Mamba. Which, by the way, doesn't Viper
That's-
Strike of Mamba look kind of good, right? Like, doesn't look like it's.
I didn't
actually
look at the
good.
patch, but it's great for Blight because of the way poison works. You hit the mob and it just proliferates the poison is insta taps
Yeah.
the boss. So
Feels wonderful. It just goes right down the road like dominoes. You love it. Love to see it. All right, so that probably wraps it up, boys. I'm gonna stop your recording here, guys. I'll send it on over to you. Thanks, y'all,
Appreciate it.
for coming by on episode 420.69 is what GHAZZY said for the episode number.